begin. Welcome everyone to help our we have educators joining us from all around the world. So wherever you are, we welcome you and thank you for watching if you're seeing this as a recording. My name is Amira Fahum. I am VP of Marketing at Avant Assessment. Avant is a global language assessment and professional learning company based in the US, and we are proudly owned by our former and current managers, as well as University of Oregon Foundation. So why are we a provider of online language assessments and professional learning talking about cybersecurity? Well, in short, we want to be a resource. We want to help introduce educators like yourself to reliable resources and help us all get better in this area of cybersecurity, because as you'll hear from our presenters today, it's an incredibly important topic that all of you should be aware of and help spread the word and educate so that everybody can help protect the schools, institutions, and our students and student data. So I'm going to actually go ahead, and it looks like we have pretty much we're a few minutes after, so I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. All right, we can share results here. Looks like we've got a number of teachers, an IT professional, some school district supervisors. Thank you everyone for participating in that. That actually helps us understand our audience a little bit better. So this is the first in what will be a series of cybersecurity related webinars that Avant will be hosting over the next 6 months or so. In addition, we'll be publishing supplementary blog posts around cybersecurity as well. So if you would like to be notified of those blog posts or webinars upcoming, subscribe to our mailing list at avantassessment.com, or you can email us at marketing@avantassessment.com and we'll add you to the list. So before I turn it over to our presenters, just a few housekeeping items. Please note that this is being recorded. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. We will have some time at the end of the presentation to answer questions, and we will do our very best to make sure we get to every single one of them. At the end of the presentation, when you go to log off, you will also be presented with a screen asking you to participate in a brief survey about this participation. And your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. We will be considering all feedback to improve future webinars and bring you topics that you need and want around education and cybersecurity, or other topics if you would like to submit those around other topics to help you improve in your job or help you in your job. So that was a lot, but I think most people have been on Zoom webinars before, so you generally know how it goes. And I really do not want to delay any further because we've got some great information for you today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Calabrese. Michael, take it away.
All righty. As you heard from Amira, I am Michael Calabrese. I am the VP of Engineering. And I have been in this for a very long time. As you can see on the slide, wow, I got to work on computers in the Apple II era, the Commodore 64, TSR-80, for all of those who remember those great little systems to play with. That's where I started. And that's actually where I started hacking and working on things. And in doing that, I been doing it for a long time, and I've worked for a diverse part of the ecosystem. As you can see again on the slide, I worked for engineering firms, manufacturing, education, consulting, and through that, I've had a lot of experience doing programming and securing products across the whole spectrum. Along with doing that, I actually have quite a bit of experience dealing with website security problems and people who broke into websites and security incidents with websites. So I've not only dealt with the programming of it, I've also dealt with handling and monitoring websites, the break-ins, and the cost and the effect that can have, even with just simple website data and what that can do to people. So that is me, and now I'm going to introduce you to the other Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I am another side to the Michael coin here at Avant Assessment. I'm Michael King, the IT Security and Compliance Manager. I've worked in the tech industry for over a decade, supporting everything from primary schools to legal offices to hospitals and just about every business in between. And I've been boots on the ground for multiple ransomware breaches at previous positions as well. So I greatly understand the importance of keeping our community safe from nefarious hackers. So, what are we doing here today? Well, this is a first in a series of ongoing webinars where we're going to be discussing cybersecurity and how schools can handle cybersecurity. Um, the next one will be September 19th, 2024. So mark your calendars. Samira will send out some information after this is over about that. And we are going to be partnering with security leaders such as CISA, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, an arm of the Department of Justice, SentinelOne, and other leaders in the field. So here at Avant, we found that there's not really a one size fits all for cybersecurity. Avant works with 5 of the largest school districts in the US, numerous higher education institutions, and many others. And we found that every situation is quite frankly different. And so in this webinar, we're going to mention resources available to you, and we'll discuss what we've done to assist organizations and our experience. But please talk to your IT supervisors, your tech team, your legal counsel to figure out what your organization's policies are around cybersecurity. With that being said, let's introduce everybody's favorite dinner guest tonight, cybercrime. So what did cybercrime look like during its inception? Well, back in the day, people started hacking as a way to learn about computers. One of the best ways to learn about a computer is to break it and put it back together again. They started hacking, committing cybercrimes to solve complex puzzles, to test their knowledge, and to get free stuff and boost their egos. Things that all sound very appealing. And unfortunately, the hacking landscape has changed a lot over the years. It's been very hard to keep up with. And big profile hacks have become much harder and harder, which leads us to big business. The hacking industry brought in $8 trillion in revenue in 2023, a staggering number. It's not just, a few people in a basement anymore trying to make a buck or get a few free things. It's big companies making lots of money off of these crimes. As you can see here, the price of a zero-day flaw, which means a flaw that's been discovered before a fix is in place, can go for as high as $10 million. And that money can go a long ways. It also means that nation states are committing these crimes as well. They have entire countries have entire departments dedicated to cyber warfare. They'll use various different tactics to disrupt and influence populations, disrupt critical infrastructures like traffic lights, hospitals, water treatment plants, power plants, or commit espionage as well. And some of the tactics that are used by governments and other non-nation state affiliated hackers are what we're going to talk about today. So you've got things like computer vandalism, like website defacing, copyright infringement, getting free stuff, like downloading free games, movies, books, cyber harassment. One of the ones you may have heard of is called doxing, so revealing somebody's address, their phone number, their name, or information about their family online. There's cyber terrorism as well, which I mentioned in the previous slide. And then the 3 that we're going to dive a little bit deeper into are denial of service, ransomware, and identity theft. So what is denial of service in actuality? Think about it like this. If you've got a mailbox that somebody just keeps overstuffing and overstuffing and putting too much mail in the mailbox, so the post office can't deliver any mail to you, it effectively renders the mailbox useless. That's sort of what denial of service is. It's somebody sending hundreds of thousands of illegitimate requests all at once to a website so that it can't accept legitimate requests, therefore effectively taking the website down or taking the service down. One of the more effective ways to do this is through a distributed denial of service attack. So you have hundreds of thousands of different bots, so to speak, sending requests to one server at a time. Actors may do this to try and take down a service, try and bring down a school for a day during finals week or something along those lines, and it can be very disruptive. We've also got ransomware as well. In a sense, ransomware is like if someone took your keys to your house and hid them and wouldn't tell you where they were buried unless you paid them $5 million. Ransomware will often take hold of someone's computer just from someone clicking on a single malicious link. And what this does is it starts to encrypt all the files in your computer, and then the bad actor will not give you those files back, or they'll threaten to sell that information off to somebody else unless you pay them the ransom. One of the big ones we had in the news recently was from Change Healthcare. They ended up paying a $22 million ransom to get their information back, and they still had trouble. So it's big business. And once again, in 2023, there was 8 trillion in revenue in cybercrime, with most of it attributed to ransomware, and it's projected to balloon to 10.5 trillion in 2025. And then we've got identity theft, which is stealing somebody's personal information. This can be used for all sorts of nefarious deeds, such as stealing someone's bank account, applying for a loan under somebody else's name, applying for credit cards, houses, cars, etc. It's a huge problem for both adults and children. And most victims of adult identity theft will discover this within about a week. It may seem like a short amount of time, but unfortunately, still a lot of time for someone to do some damage. And for just credit card issues alone for identity theft in 2022, it cost Americans $8.8 billion, which once again, we have huge numbers here, huge amounts of money, with the average incident being valued at about $650. And unfortunately, child ID theft can be much more severe and have much more severe consequences. This often isn't discovered until the child turns 18 and they attempt to apply for a loan or a car or apply for college, for example. So hackers, if they're able to get that information a lot earlier on, have many, many more years to exploit this. Therefore, it's worth more money to them. This can also lead to the child being blamed for the criminal behavior until they can get this all sorted out. And children often don't have the resources to deal with this themselves as well. So it's very, very serious. And with that, I will pass it on to Michael Calabrese. Michael, I believe you're muted.
Classic mistake, classic mistake. All right, thank you, Michael. So in the first part of the presentation here, we really are talking about all of the diversity of the types of crimes and things that can be committed, so that we see what they are doing. But the nature of cybersecurity, what is that? How do we look at these threats and know how to respond? So go ahead and go to the next slide. So cybersecurity is often looked as a static wall. I'll say ahead of time that this is not a correct view because it's not a static wall. But let's go with this for just a moment. So you have a wall, it protects you, it keeps you from outside invaders, and it's there. But the problem with a wall, and even with the Great Wall of China, as I have here, is it's a static wall. It doesn't change. So you can have different things and different abilities that are happening around it. To keep a wall, to keep these things, you have to keep it maintained. You have to maintain the staff, the guards, your forces around the wall. The wall is expensive, which is going to take your country's resources, along with, what happened with the Great Wall of China. You have to make sure the building of it is actually sound. You can't use bad bricks or mortar, or someone's just going to basically, chip away at the bricks and get through. And you still, even with a wall, you have to think of, well, can someone go under the wall? Can someone go over the wall? All of these things of having a wall. I mean, when we look at these things, that it is static, there's so many ways around it that we cannot think in static terms. We can never think that doing this will solve our problem. Doing this will stop them. We always have to move and think more. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this has come to the point that things are moving so quickly. At the keynote speak at RSA this year for CyberStrike, the fastest attempt that they have clocked thus far of someone getting into the system is 90 seconds. Now let's let that sit for a minute. That's really fast. Put that in terms of, think of it. Oh, I just got a message on my phone that something has happened. And then you've got to respond to think about what that thing is and whether it's serious, and then you have to actually do something about it to shut it down. That's a very, very short amount of time. To deal with this, we're seeing that, the adversaries are using programs to break into systems to get in that quickly, to get a foothold. And now we are using AI, other programs, to recognize that quickly and shut them down. So our adversaries can move very, very fast, and we're going to have to move faster. and be prepared. Along with this is there's a sense of that some places are very well defended. Schools are getting more defended. Banks are getting more defended. All of the places that people want to break into are getting stronger defenses. And as with any security, is you always go for the weakest link. And in many cases, that will be the vendors or the people underneath those organizations to get a foothold. So in our own situation, or not actually anybody where you have a vendor, they may try to break into a vendor, get that information, and use that information to try to break into somebody upstream from them. If you have a bank, maybe they will try to break in through the janitorial staff, like you see in the movies. Oh, well, if someone comes in as a janitor, which has less screening, they may be able to do more because they're screened less. It's the same type of idea. So what we are seeing, and we're seeing pressure for, is that third and fourth parties, the people we might work with and the people that they might work with as vendors, all have to be checked and vetted so that we are all protected. Next slide. The other thing that is very, very apparent in this ecosystem is, as Michael said, it's not a single program in a room. We watch the movies or we watch Sneakers, one of my favorite films, and is it this small team of hackers? Is it this person? And that's not true. I mean, that's a stereotype that just doesn't really exist. It's a whole ecosystem. So just like there's a whole ed tech ecosystem where you have people who provide tests, another person who provide books, in cybercrime, it is a whole ecosystem of, hey, well, this person knows how to find holes in software. This person knows how to use that holes to actually crack into your system. This person actually knows how to take your data out of the system. This person knows how to set up the ransomware. So you have all of these distinct services and pieces. This distribution, or this whole set of things in this sector, as I talked about, I was talking about just the people who actually do work on the front lines. There's whole sets of distribution, all those emails and botnets you get to try to do that. There's a whole ecosystem around, that's part of the whole ecosystem. And then lastly, guess what? There is money laundering, wire fraud, money mules. You've got to be able to take what you get and do it. And there is all specialized services and software as a service and platform as a service to do all of these things. And so it is just, there is this cash moving around this whole system. So we're not dealing with a single smart person. We're dealing with multiple smart people who specialize in very specific parts of your system. So there could be people who are specialized on a particular vendor you're using even. That's what we're dealing with. So we're dealing with people who are very fluid, very specialized, and very fast. That's the dynamic situation of basically cybercrime and cybersecurity that we have to deal with. And we have to look at what we can do. Next slide. So what do we do? This is a great question. So really, the base of all of this, of everything that I can talk about, is we train. This is, everybody has the low level thought that we have to make sure and train every person so that they know and they're prepared. They know what's going to happen. What does a bad email look like? What does a bad link look like? How do we keep people out of the system? We need to train staff. We need to continually train security staff. We have to take classes. We go to seminars. All of this thing adds to our knowledge so we can disseminate it out to other people in our companies, in our groups, and in our ecosystem. And this is a really cornerstone for all security, is the continual training of what's happening in the environment. Next. Then we have to be prepared. So if we do all this training about what they can do, we need to be prepared for if something happens. So one of the things we do throughout all of our assets, and in this world for what we deal with, it's pretty much digital assets, though we can talk about monetary assets and things like that. But even that is a lot digital these days, is we have to go through in all of our system and say, well, what's in this system over here? What is the risk of that system? If that data gets stolen, what does that mean? Okay, there's this system over here that might have PII in it. Well, what's the risk of that system? What's the risk of someone actually clicking on a bad link in an email? We need to think about and identify those risks so we can be prepared. We need to develop plans so when someone accidentally clicks on that link and something happens, we have a plan. We know what to do. We help to know how to find out what happened and correct the problem quickly so that we're not just doing it flat on our feet and saying, oh, well, someone broke in their system. Okay, well, and guessing, we have plans. The last part of that of preparation is not just planning, is you start running those plans. You basically, one of the fun things we do in our company, and everybody actually has great fun at it, is what we call their D&D sessions, where we actually, like in D&D, we go through and act out and perform and role play a security incident. It could be anything from a breach to an earthquake happening, anything like that, so that we have the preparedness, we have trained, we have worked through things, and we know what we're going to do. And so being prepared is equally important. Next slide. So in order for the other two, so we have, you need to train, you need to prepare, but now you need to know when something actually happens. You have to monitor. So we have to watch all of the pieces. We have to watch our software to make sure, and we need to do it on all of our devices. It's not just your laptop or computer. It has to be on all the servers. It has to be on all of the little pieces that exist in like the cloud network that companies build and that we use. We have to monitor simple things. Since I deal with programming has where we deal with program, but we build off of other program pieces, and those are built on other program pieces. So we have to watch and monitor for that. If someone puts in, and I put this in terms of like, pro development is a lot like Lego bricks, and we use somebody else's Lego brick. But if somebody at the bottom layer injected a bad Lego brick, well, that can cause a problem for the whole thing that you build out of Lego bricks. So we have to watch and be able to scan and look for things even in that low layer brick that we didn't even do ourselves. We have to watch even for ourselves. People get busy, people and things. We have to double check people's work and monitor people's work so that they don't accidentally write weak code, which happens. It happens in training, which is why you have to have these pieces that review and check. And there's even software that checks for weak code so that it's not even completely human dependent. Lastly, is we check our application. There are different things that we monitor about our application. Is it running normally? And we watch it. Oh, did something happen where we're getting some weird things? So when we see those things, we have to be alert that even if our AI is not telling us something is wrong, we can see it. And a lot of the things that are coming around this is having AI react faster than we can. So the AI will actually do something, start locking down resources to meet and beat that 90 seconds that someone is trying to intrude onto a system. Next slide. So we had, blanking there, but we had prepare, we had monitor, we had training. Then one of the things is once you have all your systems in place, you have to test them. So once you've kind of built all of these things and you're shifting and you're changing and you're reacting, you have to actually make sure that they work. One example I give of this, for this, well, a lot of people think of penetration tests and things of that and pen tests, but even your backup systems. I worked with a company that they did a backup. They had a problem with their systems and lost a whole bunch of stuff. And they said, oh, great, we have a backup. And it was a good backup even, but it was going to take 3 weeks to restore the backup. This left them because they had orders to fulfill the next day. So it's not only that you say that you have something, have you tested it? How long is it going to take you to get that information? Testing is important. Testing is important through security reviews. It's important to see if there's CVE alerts, in which a CVE, I forget what CVE stand for, sorry, but it's basically an alert that we get. As I talked about those Lego bricks for software, we can get an alert about different parts of those bricks that are given to the industry as a whole to know that, oh, someone found something in this low brick. Oh, we need to replace that one brick, and we can pop it out, put the new brick in, and everything's wonderful. We have to look at those things. As I talked about before, we have penetration tests where somebody outside our organization actually goes through and looks at our systems and is actively trying to hack it. We have disaster recovery systems. Those are things that allow you to switch quickly. That something bad happened over here, we can literally just turn that off and turn this on over here and move forward. And lastly, and this is really important, is partnering. One of the first things we partner with is security teams, so we get an outside view. Michael? So partnering with security companies, and actually security organizations, what I should say here, is critical. One of the first ones that Michael brought up before is CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security.
Security agency. Yeah.
Wow, I'm having a mouthful today. CISA for short, which is this is why I say CISA all the time. CISA, we have been working with them. They are a fantastic government organization. They have been very open. They have been helping us in particular with what we've been doing. We're having dialogues with them, and they have been great to work with. They want all of the infrastructure to be secure, including the education infrastructure. It is very critical to them. There's organizations like OWASP, and I don't necessarily expect anybody here to know OWASP, but I'm going to give them some voice here because they have been a fantastic organization. They are just a group of programmers and analysts and people who have put out a set of protocols and checklists that if you will release an application onto the web, here is everything that you need to look for. For developers and things like that, it tells us what to do. Looking for these standards in your organization where people have already done the work for you, where like OWASP is key, and it's really, really important for partnering and doing what you need to do. The other people on this are example of people that other companies that we partner with, SentinelOne, Jamf, Vanta, Veracode, Stackhawk. These are all people who we talk to and work with to help improve and work with us to improve our security structure. Next slide. Other partners. So all of you on this call, whether you are from a district or corporation, university, or you're at the state level, we have to work together. The EdTech industry is an ecosystem, and we need to protect that ecosystem together. So, and which is part of the whole point of this webinar is we're in this together, and we want to work with you, that if you have questions or you want to work through, you want to improve your security, if we do this all together, we will improve the whole ecosystem, not just ourselves. Which leads me to the last slide. Cybersecurity is a community effort where we work to strengthen all of us together. This is really important that we're linking arms, just like in a rugby match and doing a scrum. We're linking arms and we are moving as a unit together. All right. So any questions?
Hi, Michael. We did have a question in the chat, which I think is a very good one, actually. I work for a school district. Some vendors do, this comes from Joette. Some vendors do not have or follow a cybersecurity framework. Many times the vendor will communicate that they are small enough to manage security on their own. What is a good rule of thumb when dealing with vendors such as these?
Ooh, that is, I really like that question. So I like what the universities have done. The universities have a great form to fill out called, it's not the VPAT, it is the HECVAT. Yeah, HETVAT, right? HECVAT.
HECVAT, higher
Thank you.
education, something. Yeah, I don't remember the exact acronym meaning, but the HECVAT, yeah.
The HECVAT. And what I would do in those cases is have them fill that out. It is an excellent standard form that someone can use that you can evaluate how well this organization does in something doing. Matter of fact, it even has a grading system built into this spreadsheet for doing this. And that's why I recommend it. We have filled it out for a lot of different schools. And it is the standard. So if you don't know what you're looking at and to evaluate people, I would start with the HECVET. Even though it's higher education, it is an excellent resource for any organization to get a handle on what a vendor may be doing.
Yeah, it really gives you a good idea of what their security posture looks like and how they handle certain questions. They'll go through and you'll be able to answer like yes or no, and they'll be able to explain kind of what they do for different security requirements. And it's a pretty big form. It's really complicated because it's got a kind of an automatic grading system in there. So it's really nice for you if you're looking to evaluate somebody else. But if a vendor is too overwhelmed by it, you could always send them. There's like a light version, so it's a little bit shorter. But we utilize that pretty heavily.
I
And
just
we'll
put
even use it on our vendors. Let's be honest. We will
Yeah.
actually pass that form to our vendors when they tell us the same thing.
Thank you guys. I actually just put a link to that explains the HECVAT in the chat as well. So you could dig into that and get a little bit more information there as well when you have a moment. As kind of as a follow-up, so short of the HECVAT, if that's a little too long for someone, are there any kinds of questions or I guess the HECVAT would be documentation that they could ask vendors. But are there any kind of getting started questions that maybe would be good to ask up front?
I would ask if they've gone through a SOC audit. That's SOC audit. That's also one of the gold standards for just for proving that you're doing what you're saying, like that your security policies are up to date and whatnot. If a vendor says, hey, I don't need to, I don't need to comply with any cybersecurity frameworks, I'd be curious if they'd gone through an audit already. These auditing standards are much more strict. They've been put in place for a reason. So I'd be curious if they'd gone through a SOC audit.
I would extend to say for small businesses, honestly, there's a couple things to me in asking that question. I might ask, do they do Michael, help me with the term here. Basically, like the D&D stuff we do, the preparedness
A
training,
disaster recovery tabletop
disaster
exercise. Like,
recovery
do they test
exercise.
their disaster? Yeah. Do they test their disaster plans?
If you ask if there's a business continuity, small businesses should have that. It's not that hard to have one. Business continuity, do they can they send you their business continuity plan? Asking for that, and if they do preparedness training, that would probably give you some good feelings. If they basically say yes and they're willing to send you that I I feel would make me feel more at ease for any vendor I'm working with.
Yeah, you can really tell if a vendor's taking it seriously if they've got a fleshed out disaster recovery plan or business continuity plan. Sometimes it'll be the same document or kind of bundled into one document. But that's very important, especially if something happens and the vendor isn't prepared for it, then, if they no longer exist after that, then that might put you in a bad spot as well. So it may inform your decision whether you're going to work with them or not.
Great. So we have another question. What types of cyber threats do you believe are most common in schools? And how do you guide students?
That's an excellent question. Um, Phishing is a really big one. A phishing attempt could lead to someone stealing someone's credentials, like we talked about with identity theft of children, which is really, really problematic. I I worked with a colleague who had her social security number stolen and her children's social security number stolen. The kids were 5 and 7, I think. And they had to permanently freeze their social security accounts and then call into the government when they wanted to unfreeze them and prove who they were. It was a very arduous process, she told me. But they're permanently inconvenienced. So when the kids turn 18 and they want to apply for like cars, credit card, college, house, etc., it's a lot harder for them. So that's one of the impacts of this. But phishing is really common and has dire consequences. Not only that is, it can also lead to other things such as a ransomware attack, things along those lines. We've definitely seen ransomware be the most impactful on schools. You've probably heard of a lot of schools in the news these days. I won't mention any names, but unfortunately, they have been hit with ransomware, and it's taken them down for a long time where they've had to pay huge ransoms. So those are kind of the two big ones that I would look out for.
Yeah, I think saying ransomware, my and I think that's part of why I wanted to go through this particular webinar is it's one thing to talk about the money and doing this, but one of the things that drives me a lot is when we talk about the child identity theft, because we all talk about the big thing of, oh, all this money, because that hits all the news, but that's not who's going to bear the danger to all of this. Is it's the children who, because all of this information that's going to be stolen is going to be used for identity theft as well, and basically we'll call them second order crimes. um and it's going to put a lot of people at a disadvantage in the future. And it's one of the big things that drives me in terms of, we think of that, but it's going to affect all of these people and these coming adults in serious ways.
So along those lines, what's maybe the most important thing that an individual can do to help protect their school or school data?
I would say scrutinize any communication that asks something of you. One example of that would be an email asking you to click on a link, or an email asking you to log into something, provide your credit card information, provide your credentials for something. Just look at it with an extra watchful eye, and maybe ask your IT team or your tech team if they can get a second set of eyes on it. We are very, very good about that here at Avant Assessment. If we think something is phishing, it gets distributed. Sorry, the phishing email doesn't get distributed, but screenshots of it will get distributed very, very quickly throughout our communication saying, hey, I think this is phishing. Can somebody double check on this? And it really, really makes people aware that, be careful. This may have gotten through the spam filters, or somehow this phishing email reached our inboxes. Just be extra careful of it. Always, always double check if you're not sure.
I would agree with that. I don't have anything to say on it in addition to that. That was solid.
Well done, Michael King, on answering that one then. So is CISA a good resource for schools or for organizations to look to? I know I put their website link in the chat for folks, but is that a resource that everybody can look to get more information?
Absolutely. And I'm
Yeah,
glad
go
you
ahead,
mentioned that, Amira. I wanted to emphasize CISA. They have a lot of free resources, and by free I mean paid for by tax dollars, to educational institutions with free antivirus, free penetration tests, free policies, free procedures, that we highly, highly encourage you to take advantage of by going to their website. They're a huge partner of ours, and you're going to be hearing from them in future webinars as well. But they have some incredible resources that are just starting to become available and have been available for a few years to educational institutions. CISA is a relatively new agency. I think they're about 5 years old, but they're doing some incredible things, and they're doing some incredible things to protect students and children as well.
Very good. Are there any additional resources that you feel like we should share now? I know we can actually, we do have plans to follow up after this webinar, most likely next week, with some additional resources, but is there anything we should point out now before we let everybody go?
Yeah, cyber.org, I believe is the website, is a great educational resource for K through 12. So definitely check them out. Trying to think. And Michael, do you know of any others?
Unfortunately, I'm blanking off the top of my head. I was working on a list, and they're just not coming to my head.
Yeah, definitely check out cyber.org, CISA.
There was one that I'm going to look it up right here. I think it's called Pass. It's if I could bring up the correct screen as I'm clicking through things. Oh, I know why it's not there.
Well, passk12.org.
Yes,
the one.
passk12.org. Which is a definitely a group effort from schools, and very much from the school point of view. Thank you, Amira, of working together to try to have better standards and follow up.
And another company who you'll hear about coming down the pipeline in future webinars is Ningio. We use them heavily here at Avant Assessment for our own internal IT training, and their videos are excellent. Short 4-minute animation videos. And we constantly get praises here internally about how much people learn from them and how much people take away from them, as opposed to having to read, maybe a dry article or do a boring activity. You get to watch an animated video by some actors that you may have heard of in the past, and it really sticks with people and they make them very relevant.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions in the chat at this point. If anybody has any final questions, please send them now and we can be sure and get them answered. Oh, we do have another one from Johnsy. Thank you. What are your biggest cybersecurity concerns for the future?
That's a really good question. I can start with what my biggest cybersecurity concern is now and say that this is probably only going to be getting worse, and that's spear phishing. And that is a very targeted attempt at targeting one person within the company or a group of people within the company. Oftentimes, unfortunately, a company's weakest link can be its people when it comes to cybersecurity. There's a lot of really, really advanced technology, like the one that we use, Sentinel-1, to detect malicious threats. But unfortunately, people are often the weakest link. And with the advent of AI and voice cloning, there's a lot of very interesting, but also very scary developments coming down the pipeline. And so the one that's at the top of my mind constantly is phishing.
Yeah, I would add on to that what you kind of alluded to, the technology that's coming out that, and this is not really future, it's now, but the awareness of it being used more directly in more common attacks is the ability to clone somebody else's voice from very, very little data that might be online, being able to clone someone's face and mannerisms from watching a YouTube video online, and things of that nature, is something we have to guard against. And I'm going to give an example is through the webinar here, we are going to have to be more careful here at Avant because there's enough data here now on my face, my mannerisms, and how I talk that it could be cloned by an AI to be used. That is
Yeah,
what is as one of the largest dangers moving forward is how are you going to know who you're talking to, even if you're looking at them?
if you would like a very real and very modern example of this, look up Microsoft's VASA tool. That's V as in Victor, A as in Alpha, S as in Sierra, A as in Alpha, Microsoft VASA. They're most likely going to be releasing it soon if it hasn't already been released. But it can clone video and audio extremely quickly from very little data. And it is scarily realistic.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so it looks like I don't see any other questions again at the, yes, it is scary. As we just got a note in the chat that it is very scary, but something to watch out for. And I think that's part of what we're trying to accomplish here now with raising awareness and helping everybody with the resources that they need to try to get ahead of it. So once again, I will actually thank you to Michael and Michael for leading our presentation today. We greatly appreciate it. I know I've learned a lot. If you do have additional questions, feel free to email us at info@avantassessment.com and we can respond to those. We'll have the appropriate person respond to those. The other thing that I just want to remind everyone of again, September 19th, keep an eye out for that next one. It will be Threat Watch, how to look for threats coming, and we hope to see you there as well. And just one final reminder before we close out as well, that you will have a survey pop up as you leave the meeting. Please feel free. We really appreciate your feedback if you take a moment to fill that out. You'll also get a link in a follow-up email with to the survey, the recording of this session, as well as a certificate of attendance that you can download as well. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you to our panelists and for Avant for hosting, and we hope to see you at the next one.